Welcome to Red River Rivalry, the podcast. It is OU Sean, solo once again. Cristian is currently out of town, but I just wanted to take a quick look at all of the different SEC schedule formats that have been bandied about across the internet ever since the news is broke that OU and Texas are flirting with the SEC. Not to mention recently, OU and Texas announcing to the Big 12 that we will not be renewing our media rights. So that is the first official step in the process of the OU and Texas divorce from the Big 12, if you will. There's still many more steps to go along. As Heather Dinich was kind of explaining this on ESPN, essentially OU and Texas have to formally ask, the SEC has to formally offer. It's a bit of a process, but apparently that process could be well underway. So it might not be that far away. But anyways, to be a little bit more fun, try to be quick here and just look at all the different possibilities thrown out here. Obviously, in the last edition, I was looking at the most logical edition of if they just kept the division format, added OU and Texas, switched Auburn and Alabama to the east, and moved Missouri back west. That's the most logical, quick answer people are coming up with. You just keep the divisions, you add, and you move, right? And to recap, that would lead to an SEC West division of Oklahoma, Texas, Texas A&M, Arkansas, Missouri, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and LSU. The biggest casualty of this format is the LSU-Alabama rivalry not being annual anymore, but, I mean, that's a question for LSU fans. I mean, is getting pounded by Alabama every year worth it remaining an annual rivalry? I mean, not to mention, unfortunately, the protected rivalries format could stick around, and that could be the protected rivalry if they keep protected rivals, but that makes it... yeah. So anyways, and then your proposed SEC East division is basically all of your classic SEC teams: Alabama, Auburn, Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, Vanderbilt, Kentucky, South Carolina. So that's your quick, we're just keeping the divisions format. But there have been some interesting proposals out there that would really complicate matters. Obviously, Oklahoma and Texas are just wanting to grab onto this, we keep the divisions, this is what we do format, because in the short term, it's what is the better format for getting OU and or Texas to Atlanta for your SEC championship game. But it also is a much more geographic schedule, and I am a very geographic guy. The thought of playing Arkansas and Missouri and Texas and A&M all annually is very appealing. I mean, to me, that's part of the deal here. SEC purists are trying to throw OU into the East Division and do all this, that, and the other. I would like to believe that as a condition of us agreeing to this, that should be null and void. OU in the SEC division, no. Any condition of us agreeing, I believe that should be a non-starter. Either if you're keeping the divisions, OU is in the West and you're fixing geography. Period. I don't think we're agreeing to this if that's not in play. Now, these other two proposals would make a lot of sense. So, I guess let's get into them. The SEC Network proposed the pod proposal on television to everybody on the SEC Network. Okay, essentially, sort of goes to what I did on Vocal as well, when I was just throwing out most of the Big 8 teams to the Big 10 proposal on the just for the shits and giggles of saying why we want more conference expansion options on the NCAA franchise when it returns. That was involved, but basically I was like, we should be able to create on the video game up to a 24 team conference, because that's kind of how it's going. We want to explore those possibilities, which leads to even with only 20 teams, which is the example I came up with in the article, which even just that leads to requiring 4 different divisions. So that's kind of what they're coming up with this pods proposal here, dividing your 16-team conference into 4 divisions of 4, which 14 divisions sounds very NFL, doesn't it? There's got to be something better to call them than pods, surely, but that's what they're calling. This is the proposal anyways. 4 14 pods. Now, people have been arguing about the pairings on these ever since this has been up on the internet and on television, but just for your sake, I'm going to stick with the pods the SEC networks themselves came up with. I would like to believe they know the internal SEC politics better than people arguing about it on Twitter. Granted, I'm one of those people on Twitter. This is an amateur show and all, but anyways, okay. So the SEC networks propose 14 pod proposals. Pod A: Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, South Carolina. Okay, Florida, Georgia within one pod. Pod B: way too easy for Alabama, Auburn, but you got Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee, Vanderbilt. Keep your Alabama-Tennessee rivalry within the same pod. Pod C: LSU, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Texas A&M. Okay, you got LSU and the Mississippi schools all together. And then you got Pod D: Arkansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, Texas. So you get Oklahoma, Missouri, and Texas all grouped together for Oklahoma's rivalries with Texas and Missouri. I kind of discussed how Oklahoma, Missouri technically is a rivalry, technically isn't in the last episode. I mean, it is an official rivalry, but I mean, yeah. And then that brings a Texas-Arkansas rivalry back from the old Southwestern Conference days and helps create an Oklahoma-Arkansas rivalry, which, as I pretty thoroughly examined in both of my vocal articles about just introducing my OU to the SEC series in the part 1 and Oklahoma-Arkansas's specific episode, Oklahoma and Arkansas have barely ever played. It's a series I would want much more of a part of, just because it's weird to not have more of a series with a border state rival, even though Arkansas football isn't very good right now. I mean, it is really weird not to have a bigger deal there, and despite being a Western Oklahoma, I do have some Eastern Oklahoma connections to Arkansas, and that not my uncle, but my great uncle lives in Arkansas, so we actually have seen a bit of Arkansas football. I have watched him and my grandpa watch Arkansas and LSU play the boot game, and watching them go nuts over Arkansas felt weird at the time, but I mean, it's a good memory now. It's fun. I mean, it's like I guess being an Oklahoman living in Arkansas, my great uncle would naturally catch on to Arkansas a little bit. I mean, given that he's had family go to Oklahoma State, he's kind of got a triple split loyalty between Oklahoma State and Arkansas anyway, so that makes life really interesting on that front. But anyways, diving into so yeah, Oklahoma and Arkansas have barely ever played. They really have. Oklahoma's only gone to Fayetteville once in the entire existence of the Green Bay Packers, for crying out loud. They've played a couple Orange Bowls in the Barry Switzer era. They've played a Cotton Bowl in 2002. It was a little bit more of a... Most of the historical record of Oklahoma versus Arkansas is from the 20s and before. I mean, it's really nuts. I mean, Arkansas, they've basically been dodging playing us because they don't like tough non-conference games on their schedule anyways. That's kind of what it is. So that's part of why Texas A&M thinks they can get the votes to stop this. They think they can convince Missouri and Arkansas to vote against OU and Texas joining the SEC, and then they only need one more vote to deny us. Whereas if it was an 11 versus 3 vote, OU and Texas are in, if I'm understanding correctly. So, to get back to the pods here. Alright, so the SEC Network's proposal here leads to a 9-game conference schedule, which you would think all of these lead to a 9-game conference schedule. Having 8-team divisions and having 7 games within a division, you need at least another game to rotate more with the other divisions. So that you'd think that would lead to a 9-game conference schedule. If they did stick with the divisions, you'd almost ideally need to do a 10-game conference schedule, which really limits the non-conference options. And I've been, especially with the Big 12, I've always been big on non-conference. And you do a 10-game conference schedule and you keep the Bedlam game, that's an 11-game schedule for OU right there. So, I mean, that's getting really difficult and trying to figure out how you're doing your schedule. But we're getting down to why you're wanting to increase your SEC schedule is that one of the other things about the SEC Pod's proposal is that with their proposal of you play all 3 teams within your pod, you play 2 games against each of the other pods, that would at least allow within a 4-year career for every SEC football athlete, everybody that plays a 4-year career, you would actually play every team in the conference and go to every campus site except OU never going to Austin, and Austin never coming to Norman, Florida never going to Georgia, Georgia never going to Florida. But for everybody else, you get to see every campus site, and frankly, I don't really want to see Austin. I mean, well, with me and Cristian's friendship, you never know. But I mean, I don't really have a reason to go to Austin. I just really don't. I'm sure Florida and Georgia fans feel very similarly as well. But anyways, there's a lot of logic to this pod's proposal. It does force everybody to challenge themselves a little bit more. And interestingly enough, with no official divisions, from what it sounds like, it would lead to the highest ranked, or the best conference record SEC team and the second best conference record SEC team being your SEC title game. So that opens up the SEC title game to all possibilities instead of the separate divisions. Which, believe me, I know the challenge. I mean, the odds of OU and Texas actually playing a rematch SEC title game they're very down there. The OU Texas playing a rematch Big 12 title game this year are pretty decent, because I mean, if Texas beats Iowa State and Texas actually does what they want to do, it could be on the cards, right? But in the SEC, that is nowhere near as likely. There is a lot more quality in the SEC. I mean, I do believe most years in the SEC, OU should be a 1 or 2 loss team. When we play good teams, we generally rise to the challenge. I mean, everybody's going to throw our recent record in our face, but the Georgia Rose Bowl, we should have won that game by all accounts. We really should have. And I mean, yes, the LSU Peach Bowl was pretty disastrous, but that was a once-in-a-generation LSU team. LSU is not anywhere near usually that good. The Alabama college football playoff game, that one was really disappointing as well. It's like the last 3 quarters of that game were really competitive, but unfortunately we let the game get decided in the first quarter. I mean, I really do think OU is going to answer the bell here. Okay, I mean, yes, our record in big games is kind of mixed, but I really do believe that, because I mean, just doing this on the face of it, it creates a whole raise to the challenge mindset anyways. I mean, you have to raise to this challenge or you're going to fall down. I mean, you really are. People are scared about us being in Arkansas or Missouri and getting, torn apart by the SEC, but we're Oklahoma. We are Oklahoma. We are contenders. We fight. We fight for championships. And the players that come to Oklahoma mostly do so for that reason. So I think the kids that are going to commit to play for Oklahoma in the SEC, they're going to do just that. They are going to fight for championships. It's going to be harder, but with the 12-team college football playoff, you're a 1, 2, or even 3-loss Oklahoma team should be getting that 12-team college football playoff pretty regularly. So anyways, I'm pretty sure I've wrapped up everything about the pod format pretty good. I mean, it's not... Obviously, OU and Texas haven't even joined the conference yet, so discussing how the schedule is going to be put together isn't even happening behind the scenes yet, except for, not officially anyways. But I mean, these kind of conversations are already happening, because you have to sort of decide this in a way for OU and Texas to even agree to do it. Because like I said, OU agreeing to do this, being separate divisions from Texas, being thrown in the East, that, to me, that should kind of mostly be a non-starter. That should not be happening. Now, the most interesting proposal that could actually be a compromise of all things that has been put out there is, okay, no divisions, no pods, everybody just gets 3 protected rivals and the schedule rotates. That could be interesting. Now, deciding everybody's 3 protected rivals, that's going to be really, really, that's getting in the weeds there, because just doing ours is kind of rough. Because I mean, if you account for every official rivalry, then you have to fill in with what actually aren't rivalries to create teams' schedules. So okay, Oklahoma official rivalries with Texas and Missouri. From there, I would want our 3rd protected rival to be Arkansas, but most proposals are putting Texas A&M just because, okay, there is some logic in making a guaranteed trio in Oklahoma, Texas, Texas A&M, having that being a guaranteed trio. Okay, I get that. Not to mention Arkansas is dodging playing us anyways. Arkansas has always dodged playing us, as I've been over earlier. So, alright, well, there was one proposal for the 3 rivals that I looked at a few days ago, and for the life of me, I combed Google trying to find it, and I couldn't. But I found another decent outlook on these from an Arkansas fan. So bear in mind, this is a subreddit of an Arkansas fan that has locked us in as Missouri, Texas, Texas A&M, because he doesn't want to play us. But here's his proposal for the 3 protected rivals in a protected rivals format. If they went with this, everybody gets 3 protected rivals and the rest of the schedule rotates. Which, as far as everybody that's come up with this, it seems that just like the pods format, this would allow, within a 4-year career, everybody to go to every campus outside of your neutral site games. Okay, so, just in alphabetical order, everybody's 3 protected rivals, what this guy's come up with. This Arkansas hog has come up with. Alabama's 3 protected rivals would be Auburn, LSU, Tennessee. All of those are actual official rivalries. Arkansas's 3 protected rivalries would be Texas, Texas A&M, official rivalries from the Southwestern Conference days, and Arkansas, Ole Miss. Auburn's 3 protected rivalries would be the Iron Bowl with Alabama and Georgia. Auburn, Georgia is an official rivalry. Deep South's oldest hate or whatever. That doesn't sound right. The Old South's deepest rivalry. Good old-fashioned hate. Maybe 2 of those monikers are the actual thing. But anyways, Auburn, Georgia is an official rivalry. And Mississippi State. This is probably pairing the squares with Mississippi State, because I don't know if Auburn and Mississippi State is an official rivalry. Florida's official protected rivalries would be Florida, Georgia, world's biggest outdoor cocktail party. Florida, LSU, that's an official rivalry. Florida, South Carolina, I think that's an official rivalry. I'm showing how my SEC research isn't as complete as I thought it was, but moving on. Georgia's official rivalries, I think, are all official rivalries. Georgia, Auburn, Georgia, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina. Kentucky's official rivalries, Kentucky, Tennessee. That's got to be an official rivalry. Kentucky, Vanderbilt, probably not. That's probably a little bit like Oklahoma, Missouri. That's as kind of as local as thing gets for Kentucky in this conference. Kentucky, Vanderbilt. And then again, Mississippi State, Kentucky, Mississippi State. Mississippi States are probably sort of pairing the squares with Mississippi State, I guess. LSU's official rivals, LSU, Alabama, LSU, Florida, both official rivalries, as we've said. And LSU, Ole Miss. So, Ole Miss, all of these have already been mentioned because of the other ones, but just for filling this out, completion and all that. Ole Miss, has Arkansas, LSU, Mississippi State. Mississippi State has Auburn, Kentucky, Mississippi. Now, Missouri's, I guess, are leaning towards Missouri having been in the SEC East and these being familiar already. I mean, if I am Missouri, I want more geography in my SEC schedule, but what he's come up with for Missouri is Oklahoma, South Carolina, Vanderbilt. Apparently, this Arkansas guy is dodging playing Missouri as well. I mean, backing up to Arkansas, I would have put, even without OU, I would have put Arkansas as Arkansas, Missouri, Texas, Texas A&M, but apparently he doesn't enjoy his border rivalry with Missouri any more than he enjoys his border rivalry with Oklahoma. Go figure. And then obviously we get to where I'm at: Oklahoma, Missouri, Texas, Texas A&M. I've pretty solidly covered all of that. South Carolina, your Florida, Georgia, Missouri. Got over that. Tennessee, their official rivalry with Alabama. Tennessee, their surely official rivalry with Kentucky. And Tennessee, their surely official rivalry with Vanderbilt. It shows how far Tennessee has fallen, that just beating Vanderbilt's a big deal to them anymore. That's, again, to the whole Bedlam thing. If I was celebrating just beating Oklahoma State, that shows you how far Tennessee has fallen. All right, your Texas protected rivalries, all from history. Your Texas Arkansas game, your Texas A&M game, and your Red River rivalry game. Hashtag Red River Rivalry, the podcast. Your Texas A&M protected rivalry games: Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas. I mean, for Texas A&M and their history in the Southwest Conference, that makes a lot of sense, and their history in the Big 12, that makes a lot of sense. I can see why everybody wants to pair off Oklahoma, Texas, Texas A&M as a guaranteed trio. I mean, obviously I'd rather have Oklahoma, Texas, Missouri, Arkansas. That makes a lot more sense to me. But then again, we are kind of used to Missouri being a once every 2 years thing in the Big 12 days. So I guess getting used to Oklahoma, Arkansas barely being there is better than what Oklahoma, Arkansas, lack of history already is. So, alrighty. And then the only three protected rivals I haven't discussed already is Vanderbilt, which probably are. Yeah, this would just be completionist. Vanderbilt, Kentucky; Vanderbilt, Missouri; Vanderbilt, Tennessee. So, two official rivalries there in Missouri. So, I mean, you have to satisfy SEC purists as much as you have to satisfy OU, Texas, Texas A&M, all of that. So the three protected rivalries format could end up being what actually happens. Because, I mean, as much as I may want the separate SEC West, SEC East divisions, the SEC kind of came up with the whole protected rivalries thing just because their rivalries are important enough to protect. So, I mean, I think that's kind of the deal here. So, yeah, those are the three with the most traction. Those are the three scheduling proposals that make the most sense, and it's probably going to end up being one of the three. I mean, there's even crazier stuff out there on the internet, but I really feel like it's going to have to be one of these three, and I feel like OU can live with any of the three. I mean, in order to be the best, you got to beat the best anyways. So, I mean, and I think our current team and our current recruiting can cope with joining the SEC in any of those three formats, especially hopefully the 12-team college football playoff goes through. OU should be a regular contender for both the SEC and the 12-team college football playoff, in my opinion, with any of these formats. I mean, granted, it's some difficult road, but that's part of the reason to do this, to get challenged, to play the best, right? So anyways, this should actually be a legitimate quicker episode here. I think I'm ready to start signing off here. So yeah, that is your quick look at the 3 different scheduling formats within the SEC that make the most sense, that have the most internet traction right now. So yeah, that's your split divisions, that's your pods, that's your 3 protected rivalries setup. So yeah, I think I can sign off here in a tight 26 minutes here. I know I'm getting way too obsessed on how long the episodes are when I should just be enjoying making the episodes here. But anyways, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Props to you if you knew that was from the Truman Show. The last episode. So yeah, this has been episode 5, OU and Texas to the SEC, looking at possible schedule formats. Good night, Internet.